Then they have to wait half a day or so for the seabed to reconsolidate above it, and then they can begin to apply the full load. And now we can see the actual jet water patterns on the full-sized anchor. How efficient is this new anchor? Well, in pull-out trials, it's proved to be 10 times more efficient than the best conventional anchors, resisting pulls of up to 600 times its own weight. In fact, on several occasions, they haven't been able to recover this new underwater mole. The cable has parted first. Andrew.
Equipping the oil boom has brought this kind of new technology to Scotland, but Scottish industry has sometimes been slow to cash in, and the oil business can have its pitfalls. Last September, Tomorrow's World visited an oil platform construction yard at Portavadie, 25 miles up the Clyde. With £12 million of taxpayers' money, it was waiting for its first order then, and it's still waiting today for that order. Meanwhile, only 15 miles to the north of Irvine, Scotland's 7th construction yard is nearing completion. The Anglo-Dutch consortium building it with another £12 million of government backing are hoping that by summer, when it should be complete, they'll have a buyer for their concrete design of oil platform. But almost every yard in Britain is competing for that order. There is, however, more to be gained from North Sea oil than a new technology. There's the prospect of a great deal of cash, and that's what an increasing number of Scots now have their eyes on. And on the face of it, the promised dividends are an invitation to independence which seems hard to resist. By the early 1980s, an Edinburgh Treasury would be coining in around £3,000 million a year from taxing the oil and making even more by exporting it. The impact of that kind of cash on the Scottish economy, whose output last year of everything was only around £5,000 million, would be astounding. But it's not quite as simple as the budding tartan sheikhs would make us believe. The breaking up of Britain would be an enormous gamble for Scotland.
So, what are the uncertainties? First, will the world price of oil stay high enough to make it worthwhile extracting expensive Scots oil? Who owns the oil anyway? If there is a carve-up in the North Sea, how much oil will fall in the English sector? And how much of it belongs to Shetland? The islanders have already said they want no part of an independent Scotland. How will the multinational companies react to a Scots takeover? At the moment, they provide the know-how and much of the money for the oil industry. How quickly will the costs of getting the oil out escalate? And finally, is oil already producing a divided nation with a prosperous East and a poor West? This is a problem the Scots are acutely conscious of.
This could be the place that will change the fortunes of the West. The Hunterston Peninsula juts out into the Firth of Clyde, about 12 miles to the north of Irvine. But what happens here could be of critical importance to the new town. Already there are 2 nuclear power stations on the peninsula. The twin-towered Magnox reactor opened into the national grid in 1963. And last month, an advanced gas-cooled reactor started operating. Scotland, in fact, generates more nuclear power for its size than any other country in the world, power that they're going to need for the proposed steel complex across the bay. Work has already started on the jetty leading out to Hunterston's vital asset, deep water, deep enough to take the world's largest iron ore carriers. When it's finished, it will have cost £90 million. A further £50 million will build 2 new processing plants, the first of their kind in Britain, and the processed iron from these plants will then be turned into steel by an electric arc furnace. But the real plum for Hunterston would be a £1.5 billion integrated steel mill. That would place the west of Scotland among the world's big league of steel producers. But up here, they are still waiting on Westminster for the go-ahead.
Hunterston is designed as the entry point of an ocean bridge. The idea is that raw materials are offloaded on the west coast, processed in Scotland, and then shipped on to Europe and other markets. But ocean bridges and multinational research teams seem a long way from devolution when it comes to the science and industry we have reported this evening. Interdependence seems to be as important a concept as independence. Or can you have both in tomorrow's Scotland? The Labour Party of Scotland is meeting just by here at Troon this weekend, and no doubt they and the other political parties are analysing this aspect of devolution very carefully indeed. Well, we'll be back south of the border at our usual time next Thursday. Until then, good night.
In half an hour, Terry Scott and June Whitfield, Happy Ever After. First on BBC1, here's David Hamilton.
Hello, good evening. Welcome once again to Top of the Pops.